Welcome to Just Cook It Radio, hosted by Chef Mario Porreca and Bill Alexander. Just Cook It Radio is about food, life, and everything in between. And now, your hosts of Just Cook It Radio, Mario and Bill.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. You are listening to Just Cook It on your local station, 590 Radio, WMBS, and also on FCTV Channel 77, and at justcookit.tv. I am Mario Porreca. I'm here with Bill Alexander and Mike Sackley. Again, what is this, 4 weeks in a row?
I know. I think it's become a new thing, actually.
I'm just a normal panelist now on the show.
Yeah, we get so many calls. Everyone's saying they would need to hear Mike more.
Talk, yeah.
So
Okay.
we got some fun things coming up in the program that we'll have Mike involved in. We're going to have a little competition between the two of you.
Oh, good.
Like
good,
we've
good,
had
good.
in the past.
Yeah.
A little quiz.
Can I get something off my chest first?
Please do.
Thank you. I would like to go out and every sportscaster, every news anchor, and everybody in the city of Pittsburgh that cheered last week when the Pirates won and broke even.
Possibly broke even.
Yeah. The first non-losing season since 1992. And notice, after everybody cheered for that, what happened? They're going on this brief downhill slide.
Well, as I said, as we were talking before the show started, I think everyone's panicking a little too much.
I'm not panicking. I'm annoyed. It's like you don't cheer for something before it happens.
Well,
I mean, I understand there was a collective sigh of relief whenever they finally broke even. But breaking even is like kissing your sister. I mean, there is nothing to that.
is that the old Bob Prince?
Yes, it is. Thank you very much.
But, yeah, I mean, they've had 2 games. Every team that's won the World Series has lost 2 games at some point in the season. It's late in the year.
I'm not worried about World Series. I'm worried about breaking 500
I'm talking
right
about
now.
good teams. They're going
Okay.
to break 500.
Yeah.
I don't see them losing 23 games in a row, 25 games in a row if you count the last 2. What do you think, Mike?
There's no way. I mean, it's nothing's ever impossible with the Bucks, but still.
Exactly right. And I realized this morning coming in when I was driving in is that the last time the Pirates had a winning season was this late August that I was hired here at WMBS. My job was to engineer Pirate games, and that was in 1992. And I realized that today. So maybe they'll be able to pull this thing out. I'm keeping my fingers crossed.
It's come full circle.
It's exactly right. The circle of life, as we say.
Well, in any
If
case,
you want, we can get Elton John to sing it too. I mean, whatever you'd like.
just to close to close this conversation about the Pirates, and then we'll move on to food talk.
Why?
Well, we
Okay.
can do. Hey, I'm cool with talking about
this is life, isn't it?
I'm cool with talking about the Pirates
Okay.
for as long as you want, but I'm just happy that they're at 81 wins.
Right.
At this point of the year with still 23 games left to go. I'm enjoying it. I think everyone should just enjoy it after the pain we've been through as Pirate fans for the last 20 years. And I think it's just, if you are continuously looking ahead and expecting the World Series is something that's so difficult to win.
Yeah.
It's just, if that's your goal and what your benchmark is now, good luck. I mean, because I'm just enjoying it as it happens as a fan, and I'm going to keep watching and enjoying and rooting for them.
And again, because of the age of you two compared to me, I've seen the Pirates play 2 World Series. I've seen 70 and 79. You guys have never seen them in a World Series game, ever. Yep. And it's kind of amazing the people that have actually, especially the younger ones that have stuck with them through this whole thing. Now I guess there's some controversy about these new Pirate fans that because the Steelers season starts tomorrow, there's some bickering going on because they said you got to pick one or the other. You can't root for both
Why
teams.
not? Why can't you root for both?
That's what I said, and hockey starts October 1st. So I'm really excited that now I have baseball, football, and hockey. And October is going to be a blast.
It is. It's going to be a lot of fun. Hopefully the Pirates are playing deep into October.
I'm keeping my fingers crossed that they will.
And we'll see what happens. If they go on a hot streak, who knows what could happen.
Exactly right.
So,
exactly right.
But anyway.
I'm just tired of hearing of this wild card because whenever they...
Oh, you don't want the wild card.
I don't want the wild card, but they keep talking about, well, they have this many games. And I'm thinking, I don't want the wild card.
And since we're talking about it,
I want to win the division.
Let me point one thing out, and then I promise we'll move on, about the wild card, because a lot of people are what people don't understand about the wild card is not only do you have to play that one-game playoff to get in, but what really hamstrings you is when you go into the next series against the number 1 seed, you've already used your ace.
Yeah.
So your number 1 starter has already used. He can't pitch until game 2 or 3 of a 5-game or game 3 or 4 4 of a 5-game series. So you're starting with your number 2 starter against their number 1 starter, and that's a big disadvantage to have.
And
that's why you want to win
one
that
and
division.
done. Yeah, it's one and done.
So, go Buccos. We'll be watching tonight, listening right here on WMBS.
Right.
But so we had Michelle Wright on the program
Yes.
a couple weeks back, and we talked about honey.
Yes.
And I came across this story I want to talk about. I don't know if you've heard about this, but they're finding in Utah actually red honey.
What is red honey?
And it's saying they're thinking it comes from candy-fed bees. So what they're thinking a candy shop, had candy cane, a byproduct that came from a candy cane factory.
Okay.
And they're thinking these bees are feeding on this candy cane byproduct and creating red honey.
Now, remember what she said, that she likes to spoil her bees so they produce more honey. And she said she gives them sugar water.
Right.
So could this be the same idea that...
Well, as far as this article goes, it was an accident.
Okay.
I mean, no one gave bees candy cane byproduct to try to do this, but what they're saying is now they're having a debate whether it's really honey, because according to Beehive State standards in Utah, it defines honey as a product that originates from a floral source, from pollen, because, well, that's what honey is. The bees gather the pollen
So bees are
and
now
they make the
using
honey.
artificial ingredients to make their honey.
Basically, I mean, it's going everywhere. It started with the way that we eat,
Right.
which
Oh, yeah.
we're going to talk about coming up within the next few shows, because that's something that needs to be addressed. And I'm doing some soul searching and looking into this more, as I've done in the past. But bees they're using artificial products thanks to us.
So think about it. Just think of what combinations of honey we could have. Like if you'd leave out cinnamon red hots. I mean, with honey with a kick.
Yeah, and think about how great that would be for your body, right?
I mean, let's just think of any honey combination that we could trick the bees in making.
That's right, and it's always good to take something from nature that's natural that we're supposed to eat and fill it with junk.
We talked about food pairings a few weeks ago. It's just another way of doing it, except it's the way the source is making it.
It's interesting. Now, what they're saying too to these people in Utah that their bees are creating this red honey is they're telling them or asking them not to mix it with regular honey.
Okay,
So
diluted
it stays
or whatever
separate,
it is.
so they don't contaminate actual real honey. So I want to see what they're going to call this, because
So
if
what
they
do you
can't
do
call
with
it
bees?
honey,
Excuse me, you got to use that box. You can't use this box.
Yeah.
I mean, it's artificial
crazy.
ingredients.
it's crazy the things that's happening with food from what we're doing to it.
And when we did the thing with Michelle Wright, we had a caller call in after the show who couldn't figure out how to dial into the program. Your dad. And hi, Joe. Anyway, what was going on with that whole idea is that he was saying, because of the way we're eating now and the pesticides and stuff like that, that's affecting the honey. Honey production and the loss of bees, because Michelle Wright was talking about that mite or whatever it was that she talked about.
It's
so
amazing.
again, it was just very interesting, and this just comes full circle, because the way we eat and the stuff that we have in our environment that we're using, the bees are now being affected by it.
Yeah, and they're even being affected, from what I understand, by cell phone signals.
Yeah, which if they would just get smaller cell phones, they wouldn't have a problem.
I know. I can't. They try to use these darn smartphones, and it just there's little legs.
But how could the serious humor aside, how would the cell phone signal affect a bee?
There are scientific. I haven't done the research
Would
myself.
that be the same as radio signal or TV? I mean, that's the whole idea.
I don't believe so. I haven't done the research myself, so I can't talk on this. I can't talk on this and feel confident in what I'm saying. So, if anyone wants to call in, if you know about that, the number's 855-590-0590 or 724-812-0590. And as always, the station number, 724-438-4593. You can call us and talk to us about anything you want, but we would like to know more about these bees and honey, and I will do some research before next week's program so that we can actually address that in a correct way, because if I don't know about it, I will find out about it, but I don't want to talk about it until I know about it.
I mean, we can have all the fun in the world with it, which it is humorous in some ways, but again, it's kind of scary if you look at it.
It's very scary. I think it's crazy that it's gotten to the point where we're using all these artificial colorings, flavorings, all this garbage that we're putting in our food, and now bees unknowingly are using it too to feed back to us.
And that's the sad thing. It's not being done intentionally like it is in other situations.
Well, unintentional leads or intentional leads to unintentional.
Right. So I mean, it's all accidental.
Right.
But that goes back to the growth hormones that we have in milk and cheese and stuff like that. I mean, what's it doing? So
Well, the problem is these agencies, these regulatory agencies and the government agencies, it's all about the almighty dollar. They don't want us to really know. They don't really
I know.
care. They don't really, the point is they don't really care what it's doing to us as long as we keep buying it.
yeah. And it's really sad that in Europe and other parts of the world, they have regulation against it, except in the United States, where these
Right.
companies are actually based.
Well, GMOs more specifically. We've talked about genetically modified
Yeah.
organisms in the past. And in Europe, they've done testing, and after doing testing for a short period of time, they've made GMOs illegal across the board.
Right.
Period. You can't make them, you can't sell them. Whereas in the United States, not only can you make them and sell them, but by law, you don't even have to label them.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, and that's been the huge thing now, are these activists coming up saying, you know what, if you we can't win the war, there's too much money involved, we're not going to be able to stop you from using the GMOs and creating them, but at least label them for us so we
Right.
know. So people who don't want to eat them don't have to
I mean,
eat
it was
them.
a big step when you started seeing local milk companies actually labeling it that they don't have it in it. And now, as I talked to you, we started talking about this, months ago. And now when I go in the grocery store, there's more milk brands that are saying there's no growth hormones in their milk products, which is good. But again, that's just the beginning. We've got to go further.
Yeah, and that all goes back to how the cows are treated.
Right.
Because when you force feed cows soybeans and corn, their digestive systems aren't meant to digest soybeans and corn.
They're meant to eat grass, by
Right,
the way.
so then they get
Grass.
sick, and now you got to give them antibiotics and hormones. Now, the hormones and the steroids, they give them to beef them up. So they're beefier, so we get bigger steaks,
Right.
bigger cuts of meat, because that's, in America, we're
Bigger
all
the
about
better.
beef and meat. We eat way too much meat, and that's how they do that. But when the cows get sick from eating the wrong diet, they give them antibiotics. You know, animals receive more antibiotics than humans at this point, and we're eating and drinking their byproducts. So where do those antibiotics go?
Right.
Into our bodies.
Right.
And what do
Right.
they do? Now, well, you know, if you look at kids, for instance, who drink more milk than anyone, you can see girls who are maturing a lot
That's
faster.
right, yeah.
And that's all from those steroids and hormones. And not only does the milk now have steroids and hormones in it, but someone had a bright idea. You know what? Let's put all these flavorings in milks. Let's put all the sugar in milk. And now milk's not even milk anymore.
Yeah.
It's equivalent to drinking a can of pop.
When I buy milk, it's either 1% or skim, which took me a while to get used to. But the kids, that's what they drink. When they go to a restaurant to get milk with their meal, they're usually given whole or 2%. They can't drink it because there's so much fat in it and it doesn't taste right.
It tastes different, but we'll have to talk to my father about this because he made a point about milk the other day as we were talking. Whether you get low-fat 2%, 1%, or whole milk,
Yep.
fat-wise, he told me it's basically all the same. Because if you put a drop of fat in a vat of water, it
It'll
doesn't
all be
mix
fat.
and it's all the
Right,
same.
right.
So the fat it's the flavor, it's the taste, whatever
Right.
you're used to. If you're used to drinking skim or 1% as opposed to whole milk, it's that flavor that really makes the difference. Health-wise, milk and dairy aren't really the healthiest things
No,
to
it's
eat,
not.
period. Because if you notice, children, babies, when they're born, they drink milk, and they double their birth weight in the first 6 months.
Which it's not good to give a child milk in the first year.
Well, it's breast milk's okay.
Breast milk's okay,
Right.
and formula's okay, but it's not good. Oh,
Who do we have on the line there?
we got the guy we're talking about.
Okay, good.
But before we do that, let's take a break.
Okay.
And we'll come back to
We're gonna
the
get- This is a
our
stimulating.
expert.
I
Yes.
figured this conversation
Yeah.
would trigger him, but so we're going to take a break really quickly. When we come back, we have Dr. Joe Porreca on the line. We're going to talk more about bees and honey and milk and all that fun stuff. This has gone a complete different direction than I anticipated,
That's
but
the fun of
this
it.
is fine. This is good. Keep listening to Just Cook It right here on WMBS. Don't touch that radio dial. We will be right back. And Just Cook It is being served up to you today by the Big Barn Country Store and Deli, by Porreca Chiropractic Center, Inc., by 4th Street Barbecue, by the Herald Standard, and on FCTV by Phil Gianetti Motors.
And you're watching Just Cook It on Fayette County Television, Channel 77, or FayetteTV.org. And you're listening to Just Cook It Radio here on your local station, 590 Radio, WMBS. Phil Gianetti Motors at 656 National Pike East in Brownsville is a proud sponsor of programming on FCTV. Phil Gianetti Motors providing quality vehicles for 45 years. If you're looking for a quality pre-owned vehicle, give Phil Gianetti's a call at 724-785-6800 or stop by their website, philgianettymotors.com.
Hello, Fayette TV, and thank you for watching Just Cook It Radio right here on Channel 77. I am Mario Porreca.
And I'm Bill Alexander. If you like what you've seen so far, you can watch the program in its entirety at justcookit.tv for food, life, and everything in between.
Good to have you back. You're listening to Just Cook It on your local station, 590 Radio, WMBS, and also on FCTV, Channel 77, and at justcookit.tv. I am Mario Porreca. I'm here with Bill Alexander and Mike Sackley.
Kind of appropriate we played that last spot right before this segment.
Yeah, speaking of that, we have an unplanned guest on the phone lines.
Which is pleasant anyway.
It's always pleasant. It's always nice to have someone call in. So, and if you want to call in, again, you can call in and speak to all of us. The number is 855-590-0590, or you can call in the station number at 724-438-4593. So we have a gentleman on the line who's been on the show many a times. Bill, do you want to?
Just say it's your dad.
It's my father, Dr. Joe Porreca. He is a chiropractor in Belle Vernon. You actually heard his commercial before this last segment. And, Dad, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. I'm here, guys.
Hey, Joe, how you doing?
Throw my 2 cents in about the honeybees, because that's a very disturbing trend that's happening all across the world, actually. And, it's the herbicides, the pesticides. We believe very strongly that's a big part of it. Cell phones, it's controversial because they've actually done research where they put cell phones right in the hives, and it really didn't make a difference. But some people are stating that cell phones are a problem. But one big problem we didn't mention is genetically modified foods. That's a huge problem, and they believe that's a big contributor to decreasing our bee count. And as everyone knows, when the bee count goes down, that's a very bad thing for our ecology, with all the cross pollination and so forth that's necessary for a lot of the food that we eat. But the genetically modified foods is a huge problem. I don't know if anyone is aware of what that is, but there's big companies, not mentioning any names, but they're producing seeds, hybrid seeds. They're actually taking genes from fish and implanting them, and they're gene splicing them into tomatoes so that tomatoes can survive in a colder environment and last longer. Some scary stuff. Soybean production, 93% of our soybeans produced in America today are genetically modified. And it's strange that they did most of this genetic research over in Europe, and now most of Europe has banned the growth of genetically modified foods. That should tell us something. But yet most of our corn and our soy is genetically modified these days. So where they're down to maybe 200,000 acres of genetically modified foods being grown in Europe, we have probably 177 million acres of genetically modified foods being grown. And now it's catching on in other countries like Argentina. They've got a bunch of genetically modified crops. So that's a big problem, the genetically modified food. And when you genetically modify the crop, you have to use twice as many pesticides because they have this corn, like Roundup-resistant corn, where they can spray the Roundup on. Roundup kills weeds, but it won't kill the corn because they spliced the Roundup into the DNA of the corn. So they can spray more and more pesticides on the crops, or herbicides. They have to spray more herbicides on the crops because the weeds are adapting to the poison, and the corn isn't getting affected by it. So they're spraying 2 and 3 times as much pesticides and herbicides on our crops. When it comes to pesticides, they have a corn called BT corn, where it's a bacteria. It kills a bacteria. If a bug eats the corn, this bacteria, I should say, explodes the gut of the bug. And we're eating this corn, so it's causing leaky gut syndrome in humans. It's causing us some problems. So I just wanted to chime in on that. GMOs, that we know, is a big factor with the reduction of the honeybee count.
Now, how do you feel? Did you hear, I don't know if you were listening since the beginning of the program, but did you hear about the story about the actual bees, the story that led into that conversation?
I heard about bees eating candy. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, they're making honey with bright red honey, using candy cane byproducts from a candy factory. So do you think that's a huge problem? Because they're just essentially, instead of using pollen, which is made in nature, they're taking on artificial ingredients made by man and creating honey.
Which is totally accidental in this case.
Yeah.
Right. What are your thoughts on that whole
Just
thing?
a sign of the times. I mean, almost everything these days now. Ever since a good friend of mine, he's a retired dentist. He told me since the 1950s when instant coffee came out, then everything started going downhill. So we have all these.
Well, blame it on Sanka.
Yeah, TV dinners and all these things that all the preservatives that are in our food to help with the shelf life, but it just goes to show you bees will do anything to survive. They're going after something sweet. They need something sweet. They need sugar. Just like we do to produce energy in our bodies, and bees really need it more than we do because they flap their wings so many times a second. They need a lot of energy. So anything sweet, they're going to go after it if they can't. I mean, it's scary to think they would prefer artificial candy to a natural orange blossom,
right?
So to speak. But that's how far we've come in. With genetically modified crops and pesticides and herbicides, they'd probably rather have some candy cane byproduct, versus some pesticide and herbicide-laden orange blossom.
Well, you made the comment earlier about the pesticides, and if you think about it, what a lot of the pollen they get from is from clover.
Yeah.
Well, where clover grows, usually people consider that a weed, and what do they do with it? They kill
right.
it off. So
Yeah.
what's going to happen to these bees? They're not going to be able to pollinate it, and they're not going to be able to get what they need for the honey. So, yeah, another alternative is going to be their way of surviving.
Exactly.
And it's kind of
right.
scary if you think about it.
Yeah, it is scary. I mean, we're the most intelligent species on the planet, supposedly, but we're the only ones that destroy ourselves.
Good
I
point.
heard a great quote this past week, actually. And here, I'll pull it up because I can't really remember who said it. But the quote goes, it goes like this. If insects died, okay, if all insects died out today, 50 years from now, life as we know it would cease to exist. If all humans died out today,
Wouldn't matter.
less than 50 years from now,
Yeah.
the world will flourish as we know it.
Right.
So
the world would be a better
actually,
place.
Yeah, it would actually be better
Scary.
off. And that was actually Jonas Salk that said
Does
that.
it? Yeah, I believe that.
So,
Yeah, absolutely. Because even the ecosystem, we've destroyed that. We spray these pesticides, herbicides on the plants, to increase the yield agriculturally. But those things drip into the soil. It kills the ecosystem in the soil. Those bacteria and those organisms that are supposed to be in the soil that help convert an inorganic mineral, otherwise known as a rock, into organic minerals that the plants then uptake and we eat the plants. That doesn't happen nearly as often. Therefore, our food supply is about 80% deficient now in trace minerals because we've destroyed the ecosystem in the soil through these chemicals that we're using. So it's pretty scary, sad state of affairs.
we'll have to do something about that.
Yeah, I agree. I agree totally.
We'll talk more about that as we go along. But thanks for calling in. Do you have
Okay.
anything else you want to bring up while you're on the line?
Oh no, I think I stole the show long enough. I don't want to take up any more time with my rants. But this is something that's near and dear to my heart. I can talk about this all day long, but I'm going to get back to listening to the show and seeing what else I can learn.
Well, Joe, thank you very much for calling
Sure.
in. We appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you. And you can call in, too, if you want to chime in and talk to us. Again, the station number 724-438-4593 or toll-free at 855-590-0590. And interesting discussion. And that leads us kind of into this next story that I have, Bill.
Yeah.
Someone, and we talk about this often, someone steals our ideas.
Of course.
They get stolen. And I remember we talked in the past about K-Cups.
Yes.
And those coffee things that
Right.
you put in and you make 1 cup of coffee. Well, now, and I mean, we brought up on the show, what if you made food with those?
Exactly, because it'd be convenient.
Right. And now Campbell's has come out with a soup that is made in K-Cups.
Don't tell my niece this. Please don't.
You put the noodles, I guess the noodles are in one package, the broth is in the other,
Uh-huh.
and you put it in, you put the water in, the water goes through, heats up.
There you
There
go.
you have it.
My niece got one of these machines to take to college with her, but she doesn't drink coffee. She uses it And this I thought was really weird at first, to make lemonade. Because they have, and you heat it and you put the ice in the cup underneath and you do the whole thing. I'm going, wouldn't it just be easier to squeeze lemons?
Yeah.
But you're basically making the same idea, because a lot of people, it's convenience.
Yeah.
So, again, kind of interesting. I wish we would have thought of it.
Interesting, and we did think of it.
Well, no, but I think we didn't come up and actually market it. You know people that
we
can
didn't
do
have
that.
the resources. But yeah, you could make macaroni and cheese in one of those things. I've seen, and the new trend
would be
now,
cool.
the new trend now that I've seen going on are people cooking things in a dishwasher.
Ugh.
Because the dishwasher gets hot.
Yes.
And it's
Could
wet,
you-
so they'll wrap things. They won't. The water from the dishwasher
Can you
won't touch
poach a
the food,
fish
but-
in a dishwasher?
Absolutely.
Can you
Yes,
really?
you can.
There was a TV program years ago where they made fun of someone doing that, and I'm going, why wouldn't it work?
It would work. It's hot water, and you can wrap the fish in, with herbs and certain spices and things. Wrap it up tight and put it on the rack.
That should be
turn
your
it
next
on,
article
boom.
for the Herald Standard. Cooking in non-conventional ways.
Yeah, there you go. Speaking of the Herald Standard, my column ran yesterday, my For Starters column. We talked about tomatoes and watermelon.
Yes, I saw that.
And it was actually, that was one of my favorite combinations. Yeah, it's great with. I didn't add this to the recipe, but you can add this if you like feta cheese.
Oh, that would be good.
It's awesome with
Yeah,
that. It
that'd
just
be real
pairs
good.
perfectly. So if you didn't get a copy of the Herald Standard yesterday, go to heraldstandard.com and you can find that the recipes and the column on there. And I also have the Ask Mario column that runs every Thursday in the Herald Standard in the food section. So if you have questions, you can send those in to hsfeatures@heraldstandard.com. You can also call in the show and ask them, and I can use your questions that you use on the show.
And you also know it's his column when you see that cheesy grin on the left-hand side of the page. So.
The cheesy grin.
Yeah, the cheesy grin. You made a comment cooking on unorthodox style. You remember those? I guess it was called hobo cooking, where people would put their meals on the engine block of their car,
Yeah.
and they would drive for a certain distance, and it would get to the right temperature, and then they would eat it.
Yeah.
Have you ever tried it before?
I haven't. Have you?
No, I've seen people. It'd be great for tailgating if you think about it. I mean,
It would- yeah, that's-
you put on, and the engine block would be hot enough.
And speaking of tailgating, my feature column for the month of September is all about tailgating.
Are you going to the game tomorrow?
I am.
Are you?
Looking forward to it. Well, we'll see. I'm a little nervous, but I'm looking forward to it. And I'm actually going to, before the game, we're actually going to breakfast. There's some friends of mine that are in from out of town. And I wasn't going to go to the game, but he called me and said, I got 4 tickets. You
Yeah,
should
you
come.
gotta
So
go.
my dad and me and him and his wife are going to go. And we're going to go to the Grand Concourse for brunch before the game. And that's a good brunch.
Yeah, I'm
I
sure
mean,
it
I
is.
did it last year. They got the whole spectrum of food laid out, and get some Bloody Marys and some smoked salmon.
What a way to
and
start the
waffles.
day, yeah.
Absolutely, going to
The heck with
Steeler
a football game. I mean, just go eat.
Yeah, absolutely. What do we have? Mike's passing you.
Mike's
We have a
passing
caller on the line.
Mike's passing notes right now. Let's see.
Oh, is it a love letter?
Yeah, we have Donald on hold, so let's take the call from
Okay.
Donald.
Hey, Donald. Welcome to the program.
Hello, how are you today?
Good, good. How are you?
Oh, I was half asleep and I heard you guys talking.
So we woke you up.
Oh, yeah.
Good.
Yeah, I don't sleep good because, my back's shot and everything and pain pills and everything else, That's my life.
That's brutal. So what do you got for us, Donald?
I was listening to you about honeybees.
Yeah.
I raise honeybees.
Oh, do you really?
Okay.
Oh, yeah. I've raised bees for 30 years. Okay, I lost 9 hives already. That's since last year. That is climate change with me.
Okay.
Our climate is changing and it's getting too hot. And what is happening is, because when I listened to you about the corn and the soy,
Yes.
I really didn't pay attention to that. I have a farmer out here. His name's Richard Burge. You probably know of him. He plants corn all over the place around here. Corn one year, then soybeans.
He rotates his crops, yeah.
Yes. Okay, but see, I get my honey because, see, you got the open fields. I heard you mention about the clover.
Yes.
You got all the wild flowers. Like right now, all the last flowers that are to come out are the goldenrods, which they're out now. Okay? They shouldn't really be out too early right now. It's weird, but they're out. So I get, you get the choke cherries, wild roses. You get all the good stuff, where I'm back in the country.
Right,
Here.
right.
But it's the truth, all this spraying for weeds, like the farmer does. And when you do that, you got all these other wildflowers blooming too. You know, because I even stopped him in spring when he was planting, you know, on that spraying stuff.
Right.
You know, because I say, hey, you know, I have 30 hives of honeybees, and I don't want my bees, you know, why don't you just spray after the blossoms are done and over with? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you're noticing your bees basically are being poisoned by the pesticides
Right, and climate change.
and climate change.
Yeah,
Because here's how I explain it to people. Okay, we are getting hotter and hotter and more humid.
Right.
You're noticing that. Okay. Now, I tell people, and I've been telling them, I mean, even yesterday, okay, I says, put yourself in a car with the window up, no air conditioner. How would you feel with about the 60,000 bees, you know?
Yeah.
Okay, so I open up the telescopic cover, which is the roof and the inner cover, about a half a foot, and leave it open all summer because it's so hot and it leaves the heat out. Number two, when you swarm, you're losing them, okay? Now, they're going to find another home, okay, to live. But they're not going to live for a reason. If you do not treat them, they'll be dead within a year and a half or two, okay, because of the mites.
Yeah.
Okay, you know the mites?
Right.
Yeah, we discussed the mites when we had Michelle Wright on the program.
Now I want to ask you a question because Michelle Wright made a comment to us, and then it ties into the story that Mario read in the beginning of the program about supplementing your bees' diet with sugar water. Do you do that?
I have to feed them right now. I'm doing these with these swarms I got a while back, or, you know, a few months back. You have to feed them sugar syrup.
Okay.
Okay, to get them started, because the bees do not collect wax. You have to feed the bees because they have wax cells on their body. That's where the honeybee wax comes from, to draw the comb out.
Okay.
Okay, people didn't know that.
I didn't know that.
That's interesting.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, because this year, last year, and that, I entered my honeycomb and beeswax out the fair.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And how'd you do?
I get the blue ribbon every year.
Well, congratulations.
Yeah,
Great.
that, and then if you were out the fair, because see, you had to enter your stuff on a Monday.
Right.
Okay. Now I had put my honeybee hive display in the Fiddler's Building. Okay, because I threw a fit for a couple of years, and I said, what is this fair all about in the first place?
Right.
Okay. My importance was setting up my whole honeybee display. I had everything in the Fiddler's Building on that one table. As soon as you walked in to the right, my hive stand was right there, and you could pull each frame out, and it had a picture of everything about the bees, and then there was like a whole chart of the bees flat on a table with 3 books. You didn't see that.
Well, Don, we appreciate the phone call, and hopefully we'll talk to you again.
Thank you very much. That's very interesting stuff.
I just wanted to let you know.
Appreciate
You know, it's climate change, and then if you do not treat your bees for the mites, because I'll say this and shut up, a lot of people who started bees did not know to treat their bees.
Right.
And they lost them, and they just didn't know why.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot is the mites, too.
Well,
that's number one.
Well, we appreciate the call, and hopefully we'll talk to you again.
Absolutely.
On the other line, we have Gib, I believe it is. Gib, how you doing?
Oh, pretty good.
That's good. So what's on your mind this morning?
You was talking about cooking food in your motor.
Yes.
In 2005, me and my girlfriend moved to Florida, and we slept in my van while I was working.
Okay.
She would have lunch and supper ready when I got off work, laying it in the windshield, and heat the car up and put it on the motor. So you had hot dogs. You could fix hamburger.
Okay, I was just going to ask you, what type of meals was she able to make by doing that?
Well, she'd have soups. You'd have hot dogs, hamburger.
Interesting.
Yeah. And it works, but it takes a little while, but it works good.
I was just going to say, what's the taste like? Is it? Can you?
There's no difference. If you got it wrapped in aluminum foil.
Okay, you got it covered.
Okay. And how do you regulate the temperature for that?
Well, if she sees it getting too hot, she shuts the engine down, takes it off, and then puts it back on.
Okay.
Wow.
But it worked. We lived like that for almost 3 months.
Oh, wow. Whew. I would have never guessed. I mean, I saw people do it as a novelty, but I guess never thought of doing it for a daily situation.
hey, when you're out of money, you do what you take to live.
That's very true. That's very true.
That takes some ingenuity.
Yeah. So, what was your favorite meal that she made that way?
It was hamburger and warm pork and beans.
Okay.
And the best meal we ever had down there was when I got my first paycheck was a Big Mac. I would take $1 million for that Big Mac.
That's a Uniontown original.
Yes,
the Big
it
Mac.
is. Yes, it is.
Yeah. I would have took $1 million for it.
Well, Gib, we appreciate the call, and we're glad you called in.
Thank you very much.
Right.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
You too, thanks.
We probably should take a break
let's take a break really quickly. And again, you can continue to call in. Again, I'm going to give the numbers again really quickly. Toll-free is 855-590-0590. Locally, 724-438-4593 is the station number. And don't touch that radio dial. We'll be back with more Just Cook It. And Just Cook It is being served up to you today by the Big Barn Country Store and Deli, by Porreca Chiropractic Center, Inc., by 4th Street Barbecue, and by the Herald Standard.
And you're watching Just Cook It on Fayette TV, Channel 77, and also on JustCookIt.tv, and you're listening to Just Cook It Radio here on your local station, 590 Radio, WMBS.
Welcome back. You're listening to Just Cook It on your local station, 590 Radio, WMBS, and also on FCTV, Channel 77, and at JustCookIt.tv. I am Mario Porreca. I'm here with Bill Alexander and the increasingly today quiet Mike Sackley.
He had a long night last night.
High school football.
And then he gets to go look at mums this afternoon.
It's a busy day.
Yes, it is.
You seem excited.
So
me and mums, yes.
Yeah, and not his mother. I have an idea for a cookbook.
What's that?
You should do engine block cooking.
Would
that not be cool?
That's interesting.
I think you could, and you can get a hold of Gib, and you and him can collaborate.
There you go.
That or his girlfriend. I think it'd be kind of cool to figure out.
I think it'd be something cool to see.
I mean, the only problem I'd have is you'd have to figure out what type of engine you could use. Are you talking about a new car? Are you talking about an old car? I know on my 73 VW Beetle there would be no room to put it. It would be
You've already looked into that.
I can make toast, I think. That would be about it, but that would be it.
Interesting.
So,
but okay, so moving forward, I just want to cover a couple food holidays just so people are abreast on what's going on, and then I want to do this quiz that we talked about at the beginning really quickly. It's only 10 questions, so you guys could be able to. Mike looks so excited over there. but
he's not awake.
Today, Bill, happy National Acorn Squash Day.
Acorn Squash Day.
I like acorn squash.
What do you do with acorn squash?
You can do all sorts of things with acorn
like
squash.
What?
You can make soup. You can roast it.
I've had it roasted.
Saute it.
I've had it roasted.
I mean, so you can do it in all
I've had it
different
done.
ways. You can
I have it roasted, and it was drowned in butter.
Oh, yeah.
And it was wonderful.
And you can bake it like a baked potato.
Yeah.
And eat it right out of the shell.
This is a fun time of year because it's time that some of these vegetables finally becoming ripe.
Right.
That you can start using them for that. And whenever I was driving in, I was listening to the Master Gardener here on WMBS, and they were talking about gathering the seeds, and they were talking about these types of vegetables like pumpkin and that. Mm-hmm. The seeds are so plentiful that you can actually take them, dry them, and plant your own crop next year.
Fall's actually my favorite food season.
Yeah,
I love the squash.
It's becoming mine. So
yeah.
It wasn't before, but it's becoming mine.
Yeah, it's fun. It's a good time of year, and it's also, I look at it as kind of like candy season because of Halloween coming up.
Candy corn Oreos, yes.
We're right on the edge. We still haven't gotten over
I know
that
we
one.
haven't.
We're right on the edge of the holidays.
Yeah. Oh, that's true.
So
never thought of that.
Yeah, we're moving right in there. We got Halloween, which is all about candy, which how can you not like that? And then we have Thanksgiving, which is my favorite holiday.
That's mine too. I'm at the beach, but anyhow.
Then we go into Christmas and New Year's. So we're right on that edge, and right now I think fall personally is the best weather.
Yes.
When it cools down a little bit, it's not too hot, it's not too cold, and then winter's a whole different story, but we'll get depressed about that later.
Seems like we're getting fall much earlier this year. When I was driving in today, you could see the leaves starting
to change.
And
I'm okay with that. I mean, I know a lot of people are upset, but I'm
I'd like to hold on to summer just at least for another week and a half.
Well, yeah, Mother Nature is fickle. We don't have much control over that. Coming up in the week, some other days of note. On the 10th is National TV Dinner Day. On the 12th is National Chocolate Milkshake Day.
Okay.
And on the 13th is National Peanut Day and Snack a Pickle Time.
What, snack a pickle time?
Yeah, just take a
pickle snack. Okay.
There you go.
I know people that do that,
So,
by the way.
moving into the fall season, I want to test the two of you. The quiz is, what's your Apple IQ? Okay, and it's amazing how much little we know about the apple. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start. I'll ask Mike, since you're the guest here, so to speak, I'll ask you the first question, okay?
The guest in charge,
We have 10 questions, so you'll each get 5 questions. They're all multiple choice. We'll see who gets the most right, okay? And I believe the last time we did this, Bill won.
Yes.
So I think you're 1-0.
Yes.
Okay, and then next week we'll have the tiebreaker. We'll have the rubber match. So, Mike, your first question is all about apples. Apples are part of what botanical family? Is it a tulip, aloe, or rose?
I would guess aloe.
Aloe? And I'm sorry, that's incorrect.
It's the rose, isn't it?
It is the rose.
It is the rose.
About 3,000 species of plants comprise the rose family, including edible fruit trees such as almonds, cherries, apples, and pears.
That was my second guess.
Yeah.
So should we give him half a point? No, I'm just kidding.
No.
So, Bill, here's your question.
Okay.
What is the #1 apple-producing state in the U.S.? Is it Pennsylvania, Florida, or Washington?
Washington.
Washington is correct.
Softball.
Apples were grown commercially in 36 states. In 2006, 58% of apples produced in the United States were produced in Washington, 11% in New York, 8% in Michigan, 5% here in Pennsylvania, 4% in California, and 2% in Virginia. Mike.
Which is amazing. I would think there'd be more in Virginia since every time you go down there, especially through Winchester's, there's apple farms everywhere.
Mm-hmm. Well,
I'll be darned. I would have thought there'd be more. No, you can't.
Mike, your question. So Bill's up 1-0. Why do fresh apples float? Is it they consist of 1/4 air, they consist of 1/4 water, or their cells contain helium?
Well,
please don't say that one.
I would say 1/4 air.
1/4 air?
Water.
Is it water?
You are correct.
Oh, it's air.
1/4 of an apple's volume is comprised of air, which makes apples less dense than the water they float in. This principle also explains why ivory soap and ice cubes float. Okay?
Yeah, I was worried
just
about
in case
that.
you were wondering. So it's 1-1. We're all knotted up. Bill, who brought apple trees to the United States? Was it Native American travelers, birds, or pilgrims?
Pilgrims.
And Bill, you're correct. Pilgrims from Great Britain planted the first apple trees in the Massachusetts Bay Colony. The longest-lived apple tree was reportedly planted in 1647. Okay. So we got, 2-1. Bill's up.
2-1.
So, Mike, what is the most popular apple variety in the United States? Is it the Granny Smith, the Gala, or the Red Delicious?
I would say the Gala.
The Gala? I'm sorry, but you're incorrect. The Red Delicious.
Red
Of the 100
Delicious.
varieties of apples grown commercially in the U.S., Red Delicious is the #1 most popular, followed by the Gala, the Golden Delicious, Granny Smith, and Fuji. Varieties that are rising in popularity are the Honey Crisp and Pink Lady. So what do we have? 2-1, Bill's up?
2-1, and
Okay.
this is probably going to have to be the last question.
Yes. So, Bill, I'm going to ask you. Now, we'll make this one. If you don't get it,
He
we'll
gets to
pass it
answer
to
it,
Mike.
yeah.
Okay.
And if whoever gets this
Okay.
one, we'll say wins. So, Bill, about how many calories does a medium apple have? Is it 20, 80, or 200?
20.
And that's incorrect. Mike, you get to steal this. Is it 80 or 200?
I got to go with 80.
Mike, you would be correct. One medium apple has 80 calories, 0 fat, and 170 milligrams of potassium, 5 grams of dietary fiber. Due to the high fiber content, apple's natural sugars are slowly released into the bloodstream, helping maintain steady blood sugar levels. The subtle fiber may also reduce the risk of heart disease.
So that whole idea, an apple a day keeps the doctor away. So
For the most part.
yeah.
I mean, it's not a cure.
when you were fighting with your dad, did you run around the house with an apple so he'd stay away?
That's it.
Yeah, that's
no, I
really-
just throw them at him. But
Hey, before we wrap up, we got to mention we have a guest in the program next week.
we do. We have Connor Riley from MistoBox.com and
And
Bill
Shark Tank.
and Shark Tank.
Shark
Tell
Tank.
that story really quickly.
Real quick, I was watching the Shark Tank program a couple weeks back. They were dealing with food, and they were showing this mail order coffee, which I thought was unique. I texted Mario, said we need to get him on the show. I emailed Connor. He got back to us immediately, and he'll be on the show next week.
And we'll be talking coffee.
Looking forward to it.
And it should be a lot of fun. Coffee and Shark Tank. But I want to thank everyone for listening to Just Cook It this week. We will be back next week at 9 a.m. right here on WMBS. And you can get all of our information at justcookit.net. Be sure to check us out there and to write into us and talk to us and check out all our social media info and our podcasts. Thanks for listening. For Bill Alexander and Mike Sackley, I'm Mario Porreca. Don't forget to just cook it, and we'll talk to you next week.
You have been listening to Just Cook It Radio with Mario Porreca and Bill Alexander. For more information on this program and how to download it as a podcast, go to justcookitradio.com. If you have any questions or comments about the show, please call us at 1-855-590-0590.
This has been a $1 Million Baby production.